Hey there, church. It's chapter 17 of Matthew. So we're going to look at this a little bit of an overview. We have the Transfiguration. The disciples fail to cast out a demon. Jesus foretells about Judas. And then we hear about the profitability of fishing. I'm just kidding. Of course, we'll get to that. So first off, we see this amazing picture of the importance of Christ during the Transfiguration. Peter and James and John get to go up to the mountaintop, and they see Christ glowing. They see him with Elijah and with Moses. Peter gets so stoked at seeing Moses and Elijah and Jesus all together that he puts them on the same level of importance and offers to build each one of them their own temple. But God immediately puts strikes to that. He immediately cuts that off and puts the kibosh on it by saying, "This is my son. This is whom I find delight. Listen to him." The way it is shown in Scripture, it almost emphasizes him every time he's talking about Christ, focusing the three men there, that their attention would be really focused and put onto Christ. So God puts the kibosh on that immediately, and it tells them that this is my son. This is the one that I delight in. Listen to him. And he emphasizes him every single time that he is listing out these attributes of him, or when he describes who Christ is in that moment, and focuses the minds of the three gentlemen to just Christ. Of course, they fall down on their faces, and by the time that they do lift up their heads because Christ is telling them to not worry, they look up and that's all that they see. They see Christ. The picture of Elijah and Moses are no longer there. And you can tell that the disciples understood the importance of what just happened because of the conversation where they are walking back down the mountain and bring up what the scribes say about Elijah and his coming back, and how that will predict the coming end and the coming king. Of course, Christ is also saying they could see that. They saw Elijah the first time, but they'll be just as bad the second time. And they'll do just the same to the Messiah when he returns. Now, when you're looking at this, obviously, in those times, Elijah and Moses were very important men. Who do we have in our lives that we almost, unfortunately, place on level playing field with Christ? Who do we put more important in our lives, more prevalent? Who do we listen to more often? Who do we spend more time with? I think a lot of us in today's world, a lot of attention is drawn to the news. A lot of people hear those voices and hold them to truth, and they spend every morning, they turn on the news, they open up the paper, they're eager and willing and ready to hear those words every single day. But are they spending just the exact same amount of time, if not greater, looking into the Word and trying to spend time with Christ? Now, this downfall is displayed to us by the next section, where it talks about the demon-possessed boy and the disciples' failure to cast him out. Why weren't they able to cast him out? It's not that they weren't spending enough time with Christ. It's that they weren't dedicated to him. So it describes the scene that the father has brought his son to have the demon cast out of him. And then it says that all the disciples that were there could not do it, which just makes me think of this mental picture of some dude saying, "I've seen Christ do this millions of times at this point. I think I got this." And he didn't got this. So they go to Jesus, and then he casts out the demon from the boy, and the disciples, of course, ask, they're like, "Man, why couldn't we do this?" And Christ points out that it isn't because you haven't spent enough time beside me. It's that you haven't been dedicated enough to be like me. It isn't that you get to be around Christ and suddenly you have the ability to cast out demons. It's that you need to be so close to Christ that you understand that Christ is the one that is actually doing the work through you. So they can't do this because they haven't spent time dedicated to being with him, to understand him. Imagine if I thought that suddenly I have a friend that's so super talented at something that if I just hang out with him enough, by proxy, I'm then able to do something. Like, I'm not going to hang out with somebody and then suddenly I'm a great mechanic or carpenter. I would have to be dedicated to that craft. So I plead that we become dedicated to Christ, to being like him, to being able to do the good works that he sees fit for us to do, and that we would spend time in prayer and fasting. That would be dedicated to do it so often until we start seeing the results of it. If we spend enough time doing this, where we spend time in prayer and fasting, our faith will be like that of the mustard seed. Not small necessarily, like a lot of scriptures say, but like it, being able to flourish wherever we're planted. That even in the hardest times, in the hardest seasons, because of our steadfast faith and ability to grow where the Lord has put us, we will begin to be a lot closer and resemble Yeshua and be able to do the things that he wants us to do. So have faith, grow close to Christ, and spend as much time with him as humanly possible so that you can do the good works that he has planned for you to do. Have a great day.